Ooh.
First, we need to come clean a little bit.
You're like quivering and biting your lip because you feel the veil is thinning. What are you afraid of, Rachel?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're having a meltdown. Just relax.
Okay.
Just sitting here like, are you okay?
No is the answer.
I just don't want to look at you, Mom. It's gonna make me laugh.
There's nothing funny either. I don't know.
At least we don't need to tell each other to loosen up.
If anything, we need to do the opposite.
I can't. This is your fault.
Oh my
I'm blaming you.
This is not me anymore. We're falling apart.
Well, the trickster functions at play. When you're trying to be serious, it tells you to stop being serious. And now, so every time it's like, I've got to be serious, it's like I'm going to laugh at you.
You need the dong sound.
don't beat it up. Welcome to the Poetry Vessel. On this podcast, we invite guests across multiple disciplines to discuss the intersection of poetry with philosophy, psychology, the occult, neuroscience, popular culture, and more. I'm your host, Nathan Hassall, Malibu Poet Laureate, published poet, and professional book editor. And this is my wife, Rachael. She's an expert in IO psychology, plus she's the other half of the Poetry Vessel enterprise. Ready to learn more about poetry's transformational power? Let's break open the vessel and find out what happens. Welcome back to the Poetry Vessel. Today we have a Halloween special. We are going to explore the liminal, the spaces in between, and the characteristically spooky. The question I want us to think about today is this podcast haunted? The question I want to think about today is, are we invoking the other during Halloween festivities? And will we invoke it today on the podcast? Let's find out. Rachael, it's lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too.
How you doing on this fine Halloween day?
I'm doing well. Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm excited to be here and to get into some spooky poems. I love this time of year when things change from hot summer weather to getting a little bit cooler and foggier. So can't wait. I'm excited.
We've been laughing a lot. We've been trying to get forward with Halloween spookiness, and Halloween is making us giggle. You're like quivering and biting your lip because you feel the veil is thinning. What are you afraid of, Rachael?
I don't know. I think something about wearing this, and I just feel very weird right now.
I mean, we're dressed up a bit. Rachel's wearing a skeleton. I'm wearing some Nevermore Quaff the Raven. Quaff? Okay, I've got something to say on that earlier. I was watching a video by someone who's a Jungian expert, and he was talking about the trickster function. He said, if you're really trying to take yourself too seriously, you're going to do something that's silly. And one of the things that will happen is that your voice will go break. It's like if you're trying to be a really serious businessman, you stand in front of all your business people, you're trying to be really serious, you're like spill coffee on yourself, or as soon as you start talking, you go, oh! And that's basically what I did. So I'm trying to be too serious, so I'm loosening up.
I think we're both trying to be too serious. I think we have the giggles, but I feel it fading. I feel myself calming down.
Too. So I know Halloween was a Celtic tradition in Ireland and also in like northern England and Scotland, and Samhain was its original name. Now people will call it a pagan festival, but pagan was used derogatorily, so we can stick to the verbiage of it being ancient Celtic. But the Irish brought the tradition over to the US when they emigrated during the potato famine in the 1800s. And the US, Halloween has taken on a bit of a mind of its own. Having been born and raised in America, what does Halloween feel like and mean to you, Rachael?
Oh, I love that question. You know, I grew up doing the classic American Halloween. We would decorate, we would trick or treat. I love even now, every once in a while, Nathan and I will drive around the neighborhoods in Malibu and surrounding areas. I love seeing people's Halloween decorations and how creative people will get. It means something different to me now, I think, as an adult than it did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I would dedicate so much time into my costume, and maybe there was a Halloween party lined up. Now that I'm older, I mean, this costume was came up with, today, this morning. So not quite the same kind of elaborate energy that went into it when I was a kid, but I just have the fondest memories.
One thing I like about Halloween, and one thing that distresses me about it, is I like that there's something of the deathliness and the macabre in a Halloween celebration, and being from cultures that tend to shy away from the death. I know, like, when you go to Mexico, they have like the Day of the Dead, and recently we made a video on Federico Garcia Lorca's concept of Duende, which is all about tussling with this death energy that comes up into life. I feel like there's not a lot of spaces for that in this culture.
Definitely. I feel like Halloween is a time where people can kind of play with these darker elements, like, maybe the rest of the year, the idea of something filled with gore or horror or something spooky would put them off. But Halloween is that one time of year I feel like I'm trying to avoid going into like the Mean Girls quote where it's like
Just say
Halloween is the one time a year where you can like dress like a total slut and no one
it.
can say anything about it. But that's not what I'm thinking. What I'm talking about is it is that kind of one time of year where we can be more open about that life and death convergence in a way. Whether you have a humorous costume or a scary costume or whatever it may be, I think it's that one point where we can all we can play a little bit, which is always what I like about the holiday.
Yeah, it's a good point. Bringing play into it. I'm thinking like the original Samhain celebrations. It was the end of the summer and the start of the winter. So there was a crossing over between seasons. It meant that there wasn't going to be food and crops growing. And it was a time when the ghosts and the souls of the dead could come up and haunt you. I feel that, you know, through film, for example, there is a lot of horror out there, and there's a lot of fans of horror. I like that Halloween is an attempt to bring it into like the mass consciousness in the country of something that's celebratory of the darker side of things. But I don't always think it's that. We've been to a party before, and I dressed, I thought, really creepily, and everyone there was just wearing onesies, and I felt a bit silly, but I also felt a bit cheated because I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I have like kind of gothic interests. I like black metal and dark ambient music when I'm writing poetry. I like the dark. I'm wearing a Quoth of the Raven, like Edgar Allan Poe t-shirt.
Is it quaff? It's like I guess that's
QOTH.
the old English quaff,
Quoth the Raven.
right? Sorry.
Excuse me.
Have you read Poe?
And I like, going around England and visiting graveyards, especially when it's grey. And I really enjoyed writing the script and narrating and doing a tiny bit of acting with Duende. And you edited that video and made it amazing. You brought out so much life and captured the spirit of what I was going for in a way that I couldn't have imagined before you did it. So I really appreciate that you did that.
Well, thank you. Duende was such a fun video to make, and it was such an interesting concept to learn more about and to really dive deep into Lorca's life. Which, if you're not familiar with him already, I highly recommend going and watching that video. We spend a lot of time breaking down Duende and his life. But I suppose if you were to summarize what Duende is, Lorca's concept of Duende, because I know it has obviously historical roots elsewhere. How would you summarize it for people?
Locke would say that it's all that which has dark sounds, and you can take this metaphorically. The darkness that's present in sort of true expressions of art and poetry and dance and music. And it's this force that you feel and that you experience. If you write with Duende, you're in the liminal space where you're dancing between death and art. He would say, when you feel the blood coming up from the soles of your feet, I feel like when you're like energized, but you're energized by the dark energy. But what's interesting is I was asked the other day, we were at a book launch, and I was asked, well, is there light Duende as well? Is it evil? And it brought up an interesting conversation because I thought, well, is the dark evil? My question was like, how do you define darkness? What's darkness to you? And it brings to me the idea of the Jungian shadow, as in it's the repressed side of your personality that lives in a shadow. And Duende allows you to take these repressed qualities and express them. And when I say repressed qualities, I don't just mean the negative parts of your psyche that you might not be aware of, because positive parts can live there as well. So the shadow is all that which is buried.
Mm. Duende is that force that we all feel, but no philosopher can explain it. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so this is when we get into the realm of metaphor, for example. It's like in art, you're creating an experience. You don't have full control as the creator over the experience of the viewer or the listener or the experiencer. Like they bring their own unique interpretations to it. You're still crafting something that has a form which gives enough context for the viewer or listener to have a type of experience, even though you can't fully control it. And the reason Lorca would say that it cannot be explained is because it's expressed in art. And art is dealing with the edge of explanation, and you're going through the doorway into something else.
Mm.
Why would I express something in a poem if I could just explain it to you? If I'm explaining something to you, I'm telling you directions or saying, like, this is why X works. This is how a car works. That would be an explanation. If you,
Are you mansplaining me what an explanation is?
absolutely. But if you had a poem to tell someone how to fix a car, well, it's probably not going to be, it's either not going to be very poetic, or it's going to be so poetic it's not going to be helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting, and I think duende is a concept that speaks to a lot of people. I think we welcomed a whole group of new subscribers, which was really exciting to see from that Lorca video. So I think this interest in the dark or this dark force is something that speaks and calls to a a lot of people out there. And his poetry speaks to me anyway because of its musicality and for its own duende, which you really feel in that poem that you shared in the video, which was about a friend of his that had died the in a bullfighting ring. He was a matador. And that was another situation where the more times that I heard that poem, the more meaning that I got out of it. And yeah, it was just such a joy and a pleasure to make that video and to dive into something a bit dark because I think you can find meaning there too, and it doesn't have to be dark in the sense of bad. Dark is not necessarily bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think of the chaotic, the Dionysian, the energy that like you're kind of like, oh, I'm in the chaos, I'm swirling in this vortex of like, you know, that's exciting, and also it's something that we want to learn from. There's kind of wisdom in the dark.
Hmm.
If you already know something, if you're already enlightened to it, it's like, okay, what's beyond it? It's the unknown. The
Yeah.
unknown is dark. It can be really powerful in horror films when you have a monster or a creature who is never revealed. The fear is it's actually the dark in your own imagination of what it could be. Maybe you hear snarling. Maybe the camera is in the trees looking at the house that the people are in. It's like you see all these different perspectives and you feel fear, but you don't always see it. Seeing and naming and being more familiar with can make things less scary. You ever seen a bug you've never heard of or seen before? And you go, whoa, what the? What's that? It's unknown. It can be scary.
We see some extra creepy bugs around here. The millipedes, potato bugs.
I saw a drowned potato bug the other day, and it was really large and it was really horrible.
Oh, they're so creepy.
Yeah, I hadn't seen one. I don't think we have them in England, or at least not where I grew up. I'm glad for that.
That's fair. Potato bugs are a bit creepy. Sorry if there's any potato bug fans out there.
There's probably a fan club.
For potato bugs?
So they probably have T-shirts and everything.
Mr. Potato Bug.
There's a Pylon Appreciation Society, which I used to be part of a group on Facebook. So completely like
There's
other
groups
thing,
for
but
everything. And I mean, that's what I love. I love that the internet is a place where we can all have these highly specific interests and come together. Like poetry. Poetry is a highly specific interest, and it's been great to connect with more poets who've been doing things through the poetry vessel.
I do not think it is as specific as we try to make it out to be.
Poetry?
hmm
Why do you say that?
Because there's poetry in a lot more things in the world than we tend to give credit for. And I think the way in which we conceptualize it and brand it puts people off when they don't realize that maybe the novel they're reading is poetry, the film they're watching has poetic dialogue, the music lyrics that they're listening to and singing along to and being enchanted by is poetry. Speaking to someone can be poetic. So I think it's wider than we think and less niche than it comes across, and more people like it than they make out. A lot of people are resistant to it, and then in certain contexts, they go, "Oh, I actually like that." You're like, "Yeah, you like music, you probably like poetry."
Hmm.
Controversial opinion.
Very controversial, but I guess that's why we're here on this channel. Speaking of poetry, I feel like the listeners and watchers here have been pretty patient. Should we start with a poem on the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Before we do that, though, if you're new here, I just want to quickly explain a little bit how this works.
Mansplain. Getting you back.
Excuse me. Nathan's going to put that in what we call the later pile.
Yes, she's in trouble, dressed as a skeleton.
If you'd like to have your poem be considered to be featured on the Poetry Vessel podcast, we've included a link below, or you can go to www.thepoetryvessel.com/submit to send in your poems for consideration for feature. We also have something special called the Mystery Box. The Mystery Box we found in a small town in Southern California, a little mountain town, with the name creepily etched onto it, Francis B. Malloy.
Thank you, Francis.
We don't know who that is. We don't know why it's been carved into this box.
But Francis knows who we are.
Ooh.
Halloween.
Yes. So we feel that the Mystery Box and Francis has a little bit of a life of its own. So we currently have lots of poems in the Mystery Box. These are poems that are waiting to be pulled at any point during any podcast during the future episodes. I will admit something to you though. We have swayed the system a little bit this time for this Halloween episode because, of course, we want to share Halloween poems with you here today. So, the poems that are in the mystery box are Halloween poems that we're going to pull now. We'll probably only pull one or two, depending on how much time we have, and we can't wait to share them with you.
Should I pull the first one out?
Yeah, let's get Francis here.
Francis, as always. So, without further ado, I'm going to read this poem. Today's first mystery box poet is Sheikha A. Sheikha A is originally from Pakistan, but has been raised and is a resident of United Arab Emirates. She's written a variety of poems ranging from subjects of mysticism, speculative, horror, sci-fi, and spirituality. Her current interests are in spirituality and being curious about the universe and life after death. You can find more about her at sheikha82.wordpress.com. Saturn the Gardener was first published in Ladies of Horror. He enters graveyards on train wrecks, Cerberus at his heel, earthly visions haunt his memories of the horseman he watched sickle his way through land's chest, slit it wide, and plant seeds of these blooms, the one final meal. They began to fall away, moths do, in the absence of flame, hunger, and home. He lived to last, watching the earth cocoon bodies in a vine grip and snatch them into its embrace, dissolving skin, bone, and flesh as compost of life for the eternal fire. The food of crop never found his mouth, his hunger dormant like centuries of evolution. But he lived long enough to watch the world birth and decay out of soil, red as carnage, carnelian as life, and black as breath. Time elapses. He watches the metal car creak into the curb, this land people visit for the beauty it hosts, hunger for food, delicacies unheard of. Only his eyes see the truth of beauty, the heedless desire for exotic places, and the soil famed for richness, growing blooms promising immortality. They lumber out, masses of fodder, Cerberus mewling in stirred patience. His animal has been good. He might leave him the bones.
I love that last line.
Yeah.
And first off, brilliant poem, so perfect for the Halloween season. I love just again hanging on that last line. I like that even gods feed their beasts, and that Cerberus has been a good boy, maybe. With that word might.
I like this crossover mythological between the Roman god of time and agriculture and more in Saturn, and Cerberus, who was the multi-headed, three-headed dog that guarded the gates of the underworld in ancient Greece to stop the dead from escaping. He also had a snake for a tail and snakes coming out of his body, and pretty creepy. And I love this imaginative idea, and I also love in so much mythology snakes are present. I think of the snake in the Garden of Eden. There is something so primordial about the human fear of lizards and dragons and snakes. I know there's snakes that can move so fast that they completely outpace humans running. So very scary stuff.
Wasn't Cerberus called the Hound of Hades as well?
Yes.
I like that. The Hound of Hades.
Unfortunately, my imagination of what Cerberus and Hades would have looked like has been hijacked by the Disney film Hercules. So, also from Kingdom Hearts, which is a game based on Disney where they have Hades and Cerberus in the game. You can fight them with a keyblade. But that's what I picture. And this is one of the problems things when these concepts have images in film and television, it affects how you imagine them.
I love that movie. Just saying.
Great movie.
Hercules is great. It's one of the best original animated Disney movies. I've said it.
It's so original because it completely ignores so much of the mythology to do its own thing.
Yeah.
Great film. It's got Danny DeVito in it. Anyway, back to this godly gardener, Saturn. So much is going on in this poem. There's so much growth and birth and death and dissolving and an eternal fire, and it's loud, but it's not crowded. I'm brought into the atmosphere and the imaginative space and the liminality in this piece. And I like that the god has earthly visions that haunt his memories,
Mm-hmm.
which is so interesting because, as a human, I think of having either celestial visions or visions of the dark. They would be the things that haunt me, but he's haunted by the earth. I find that I find that meaningful, and I can't quite put my finger on why. But I can't. Great pun. But I can't quite put my finger on rye, and I can't quite put my finger on why.
You've been doing a lot of those lately, I've noticed. It's funny.
Freud said that when you're more aware of slips of the tongue, which he called parapraxis, it will happen more often. And I've been thinking about them a lot recently, so I'm going to be doing more.
That was my backup costume option, was the Freudian slip.
Yes.
um.
Too many things happen when you show me that being a potential, it was just a black dress that said Freudian slip
Freudian, yeah.
on it, and
Well,
I
it
was
was a
like,
slip. It's a slip dress.
no, I,
Yeah.
I understand, but
Mm.
there's so many like associations with that. It's like too Freudian. It becomes, I don't know. Maybe it's a limit I'm not willing to go beyond.
We found Nathan's boundary in a very tame place.
I know, right? I surprise myself sometimes.
Well, I guess to go back to this poem a bit, what I liked about this, because we received a lot of submissions for Halloween, which was really exciting, and thank you so much everyone who submitted your poems. They were so much fun to read. And thank you to Sheikha so much for submitting your poetry as well. This is such a joy and a pleasure to unpack your poem here with Nathan. But I like that this poem wasn't necessarily overtly Halloween, trick or treat, some of the things that you might think of stereotypically that are associated with Halloween. But it still has that darkness, that liminality, if I'm saying that correctly, that speaks to this season. So Saturn has a duality of being a creator and a destroyer. And I feel like we see that a few times here in this poem with the food of crop never found his mouth, his hunger dormant, like centuries of evolution. There's this element of the destruction and the creation in this poem. There were also a few other things that stood out to me that I thought were interesting here. That it's mixing modern things with traditional myth. So we have, even the poem is starting off with he enters graveyards on train wrecks. And then later in the poem, there's mention of the metal car creak into the curb. So this blend of traditional myths and stories with modern elements was really well done by this poet, Sheikha. So I didn't know if that was something that stood out to you too, but I think that that play on modern and myth just really stuck with me here.
Yeah, and I love how it begins. He enters graveyards, as you're saying, on train wrecks. And it makes me think because later the sickle, he watched sickle his way through land's chest, slit it wide, and plant seeds. So there's things like opening. When I think of a train, sometimes I think of like a zip with
Mm.
the train going through the landscape and like unzipping the land.
Hmm.
And that's been wrecked, but a sickle's doing that. So there's something I see like associatively together here. I loved the thing you said about duality. You've got the god, and then you have the terrestrial. We're on the earth, and there's something in here. It's very alchemical. The bit of the dissolving skin, bone and flesh as compost of life for the eternal fire. Something's dissolving, it's becoming compost, it's going to have all the nutrients, it's going to help, but then it's for the eternal fire. And that's where I see, Cerberus again. It's like, hey, if you're going to do the things that get you to hell, you're going to be in the eternal fire if I'm going to accept this vision and my own kind of Christianized context of how I imagine the beginning and the end. So yeah, great point on the modernizing myth, because that's interesting. That's how myth stays alive. Myth gains itself in new contexts, and that's why they keep being retold, because we can relate to them. So the retelling, gaining a modern context, gives us something we can cling on to and understand, as well as sit back with what is there.
Absolutely. I think there's other things in here too. I love when I have to go off and do my own research with a poem, and I had to do that quite a bit, admittedly, when I had first read this poem, because there was a few things that I knew would bring more meaning to me if I understood it better. So, for example, and I love these lines here: the red as carnage, carnelian as life, and black as breath. Just beautiful. But carnelian, I learned, if I can find it. So I don't know if you know this, but carnelian was used by ancient Egyptians to guide souls to the afterlife, and by Romans to enhance strength in battle. So I believe it was like a stone, carnelian.
That's really interesting that that's how the Romans used it in the Egyptian context, because it's like, oh, I'm guiding them to the afterlife. And I'm like, well, if you have strength in battle, maybe you're not guiding someone to the afterlife, but you could very well be forcing someone to the afterlife.
Oh, through battle, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what that meant. I found the meaning reddish brown. I don't know if I wrote the wrong thing in. Red as carnage, carnelian as life was a color.
I think it might be a color as well. Like,
Oh, so that's okay. So it's used in these multiplicitous contexts.
yeah, it's also a color named after the carnelian variety of the mineral chalcedony. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's a reddish brown, which is again the same kind of stone. Did you need to see the pronunciation?
Yeah, I want to not be able to say it as well. Chalcedony. Chalcedony. Yeah, I don't know. Semi-precious stone.
Mm-hmm. Which is reddish brown. So yeah, it's not only the color, but it also has the double meaning of the Egyptians using it to guide souls to the afterlife, which of course is really fitting. And there's a few different blends of cultures happening within this poem. I guess we've got the Roman, the Greek, and perhaps the Egyptian as well.
And also Saturn is associated with time and passing. I mean, that's part of agriculture. It takes time for it to grow and harvest, and it happens cyclically. There's one bit in here, and you mentioned it, but I want to pause on it. His hunger dormant like centuries of evolution. Now, I don't know this, but I know that evolutionary time happens on a really wide time scale. It's kind of like you have cosmic time, and you're like, well, the universe started 13.7 billion years ago. Impossible to comprehend. Then you have an evolutionary time frame. I don't know how long life's been on the Earth, but like it started in a process called abiogenesis, apparently in the volcanic vents in the ocean where single-celled organisms started. But that was a really long time ago. So evolutionary time is really stretched out as well. It took a really long time to go from single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms to coming all the way up to, well, what we like to think is the pinnacle of evolution in humans, but I think there's a good argument to say it's octopus or octopi. Um,
Wait, what?
Octopus are great. They're really intelligent. They
I
only live for a couple of years, though, and they don't pass knowledge down because they lay eggs or whatever. They get born, but they don't have anything raising them. So octopus are pretty super intelligent. However, thinking of like dormant like centuries of evolution, I was like, well, maybe evolution is always happening because things are always changing and catalyzing in us. but it's kind of dormant in that it takes a really long time for really significant evolution to happen, and why we have all these different species on the planet. If you're watching and you're a biologist, or you study these things, please let me know something more detailed than that. So yeah, the slowness, the dormancy of centuries of evolution and agriculture and the growth of crops and the need for food, and the need that's so powerful, but the God that's so, in this case, almost petty in the end, with
Might.
he might leave him the bones. His animal's been good. He's done well. But Saturn here is a devourer. It's devouring.
Mm-hmm.
He might leave the ends, you kind of say, here's the scraps. But he
Mm-hmm.
might not. He might be like, screw you, Cerberus. You don't deserve anything.
Harsh.
Very harsh.
I'd be really interested to hear from this poet directly as well on what their inspiration was behind this poem. I feel like it does tie in so well with Halloween and Hallows Eve specifically. I think thinking about the end of the harvest and the start of winter. So if you're listening out there, Sheikha, we'd love to hear from you, and thank you again for submitting your poem.
I have a really fun transition to come out of this segment of the podcast. Louise Glück has a poem called All Hallows Eve, and the last line is, and the soul creeps out of the tree.
Hmm.
I've always loved this line for multiple reasons. One, lots of writing teachers say don't use soul in a poem. This is a rant I'm going to go on in a different podcast, but the long and short of it is like, use it, just use it well, like Louise Glück does in her poem. She makes it tangible by giving the soul. She doesn't say specifically that it has like legs, but when I hear creeps, I think of a critter, a creature, a bat, something. So it's become material as well. So it works. So in the interest of transition, the soul creeps out of the tree, and now it's flying around the room because the tree's on the inside of the house.
Ooh. I wonder if we're gonna have any more kind of spooky like occurrences after this podcast. I remember the last time we brought more of the duende or haunted atmosphere to one of our podcasts. We had very strange situations that happened. You'll have to watch that podcast if you want to hear my story about our potential ghost encounter.
Summoning a ghost with a poem.
Yes,
Yeah.
which Nathan did. The final cut of Nathan recording that poem in the graveyard unfortunately didn't make it into the end of Duende. We just hear his voice, and we did some animations on top. But if anyone really wants to
Same
see,
poem though.
but if anyone really wants to see that, let us know, and we're happy to share that poem somewhere with you as well.
I just want to share something because I just want to share something because I brought up Jung a bit
Mm-hmm.
earlier when I was talking about the shadow. Jung was obsessed with ghosts and hauntings and the occult and UFO phenomena, and always the dimension of the psyche that interacts with these things. And there's a really fun story when Jung and Freud met at one point. They were in, I think they were in one of their living rooms. I can't remember the exact location, but Jung was Jung believed that occult phenomena was real. Though at some level it was real. Freud was obsessed with it, but would deny it. You could argue he repressed it. You could say he put it in his own shadow. There was a moment when they were together that they heard knocking on the wall, and Freud was spooked. And he was like, how are you doing this? You're playing tricks on me. And it was as if Freud was believing it at the time, but then when he left, he was very much accusatory of Jung. And of course, one of the reasons, Freud was Jung's mentor, but they ended up splitting from each other.
They had a breakup.
They had a breakup. Even though, this is little known, they got tattoos together.
This still blows my mind. That's like one of the funniest things that I've ever heard. I like picturing, like for some reason my head can deal with like Jung getting a tattoo, but Freud, that to me is a bit wild.
It gets better though, because Freud and Jung both got matching dragon tattoos. And I think it was in Austria, you used to have to record when someone got a tattoo. So there is a primary document that a researcher found. I do not remember his name, but I believe he's writing a book about it. I heard this on the This Jungian Life podcast. They got matching tattoos of dragons, and so if they stood, I can't remember which leg was which, but if they were leg to leg, the dragons would face each other. However, Freud got his dragon with a phallus, which is really fitting because they had a disagreement as well over what libido was. Freud is like, dude, this is sexual energy and that's it. Jung is like, no, there's more to it than that. It's like the instinctive energy that we all have. So
Freud would get something phallic. That just ties into just all of his lectures, ideas, like it's just very fitting, isn't it?
yeah, his any one of his friends that would have seen that tattoo would have been like, of course you got a dick. So in the soul creeping out of the tree and in the Jung Freud occult phenomena, I believe the next haunting should occur through the reading of another poem.
Ooh, yes, I'm excited. And I also want to talk to you about, because I feel like this episode is made for Nathan. Nathan has so many different interests in tarot, in spooky things, in black metal, in Duende. So, I mean, this season is your time to shine.
This is my time to shine, as you said, very much in my element. To stay Jungian, I wear a thick persona mask sometimes in these contexts. But this is a time where, like, no, this is also socially acceptable right now. We can all let our inner dark weirdos out. So, without further ado, should we bring another poem out?
Yes, from a fellow dark weirdo. Just
Who
kidding.
might it be?
I feel like even though you read the first one, I feel like you should read the next one too, because I think we might only have time for this last poem. So, Nathan, you're such a good reader. I would love if you did the honors again with this poem.
I just want to say this next poem is previously unpublished. So this is an exclusive for today's episode. Our next mystery box poet is DeForeest Wright. DeForeest Wright is a native Californian, host of the Sunless Sea Poetry and Spoken Word Open Mic Show in Santa Monica, and he is interested in philosophy, history, mathematics, and science, as well as poetry. Alukah. Out of what crypt she crawled, no man recalls. But every night I see her raven tress, her pallid body through her ragged dress, and dead grey gaze that freezes as it falls. She pulls the shadows from the bedroom walls, with fell attractions born of emptiness, filling my body with undying stress, as she lies on me like a leaden doll. Over my heaving chest she bares her teeth, heedless of all the cries I try to make. Then down she dives, their points to rake. On the frail flesh my pained heart beats beneath. Pray God, if only she would lift her head and let me rest before I, too, am dead.
before I say anything else, we have to say we know this poet in real life, and he's a fantastic person, friend, and poet. And of course, he is an expert in sonnets, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I want to say two things. One, this poem is totally here on merit, as you can imagine from hearing it. And I want to say that DeForeest has been a extremely good friend, but also extremely good mentor in all things philosophy, poetry, rhetoric, and he's really helped guide me in my thinking and challenged me to read more deeply and learn more about so many subjects I didn't have a foothold in. So not only has he helped teach me them, he's pointed me to resources that I've gone to and read, and it's just made me so much more sharp. So I really appreciate you, DeForeest, and he comments a lot on this channel. So if you see him there, have a conversation. He's always up for a good debate.
Absolutely.
As for the poem, Rachel?
Yeah, let's get into his poem here though, Alukah. So I had so many, I mean, and even just hearing you, Nathan, read this poem, how hypnotic it is. And I think this is something I said to you the other day, that I'm drawn to poetry that has that rolling, hypnotic feeling. And this poem absolutely captures this. So, of course, with this poem, as in a lot of conversations I have with DeForeest, I had to go away and do some of my own research. So, again, so I can fully understand all of the meaning and hard work that went into his poem. And that started with the name Alukah, which I believe is a Hebrew name for meaning horse leech in Hebrew, or a female vampire or blood-lusting monster.
And the horse leech would feed on the necks
Mm-hmm.
of animals.
Mm-hmm.
So
So already such a dark figure to incorporate as the primary focus and character of this poem. And of course, the speaker of the poem is being visited by Alukah nightly.
yeah, and with the out of what crypt she crawled no man recalls. I like the recalls. It's not what no man knows. It's like they know it's in the shadow. They can't recall it. They can't say where it came from, which I really like.
Oh, good point. Good point. I missed that.
Can I say one thing in the to stay Jungian again? He had the concept of anima and animus. The anima, some people would say it's like man's inner feminine, which I believe Jung saw it as that. But I think it's been expanded upon to mean man's relating function with women. So how I would relate to you would be my anima, based on something that is also internal in my psyche. And for you, it would be the animus, which would be the equivalent of the male archetype thing in you, which allows you to relate to me in a certain way. Should the anima be out of whack, or someone, a female figure, be out of whack for a male, it can be very vampiric. It can compel you towards it. It can take your lifeblood and energy and obsession. It makes you think of a siren,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Or
a siren that's
succubus.
yeah, a succubus, a siren that once it gets you is there to devour. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you before we go into even more of this poem, because you said that you really like this rolling, hypnotic rhythm. So do I. But this is something that you've said more recently. So, what is it that you realized about poetry that that's something that really you connect with?
I think it's because it drops you in. It drops you into almost like a different state through, again, uh, I'm sure it can be gathered from the use of the word hypnotic, but I feel somewhat hypnotized. I'm like in that trance of the poem, which I never used to fully understand. So I think I'm attracted to two things in poetry. One, that rolling, that hypnotic, you're with them, and I find that really strongly in this poem. I think because of the iambic pentameter, helps bring you into the heartbeat of the poem, and you get kind of synced up with a poem as you're hearing it or as you're reading it. And then the other aspect of poetry that really speaks to me now, and I guess this is a hint for anyone submitting their poem to the poetry vessel, is if I have trouble in my head picturing an image, because I now, as we're making these videos, I'm creating visuals for many different poems that we receive. If that image, if I can't see it in my head, I know it's going to be difficult for me to make a video, and something isn't clicking, something isn't resonating for me. So that's an unexpected thing that I've noticed about making these videos, is that mental imagery coming forward and that rolling hypnotic feeling. Those are the poems that really speak to me.
We're similar on that. People often think, especially people who are newer to poetry, that mystery is deepened by obscurity when it's actually deepened by clarity. And when you can picture something, you don't have to be able to make full sense of it. But when you're brought into the scene, there's images, and you're working this mystery out, but you're being given something. This is where like the magic occurs. It's kind of like, okay, if I dreamt purely in abstractions, Latinate words, the endless time of strange complexities, you go, what? You don't really have a lot to cling on to. You could do that occasionally in a poem, but if it's all that, you don't have anything. When you have like, this is a cliche, so maybe a better version of it, but when you have like a crystal clear lake with a bead dropped into it from a pipette, and it ripples outwards as a liquid mirror, something like that. It's like you can kind of follow the whole thing. So this poem and the poem we read before, there's a lot of clarity, and there's that creepy mystery that sits within it.
And yet, this scene is dreamlike. That almost like an in and out of consciousness kind of feeling. So it doesn't necessarily, like, poems don't have to be literal. They don't have to be so narrative and clear that, you're spelling everything out for someone, that there's no room for interpretation. I guess that's not what I'm trying to say. It's you can have a dreamlike poem where you're there with the poet, you're in that hypnotic rhythm, and you're right there with them in your understanding and your visualization of what the poem is saying to you. And I think something that's also helped me recently that I never used to do is closing my eyes while listening to a poem. I
Big
think,
fan of that, just saying.
yeah, and that tends to go. I've heard people have good arguments for both. For me, I typically would keep my eyes open. I like to look at the poet's face while they're reading their poem, because I think you can get some extra insight into either the poet themselves, maybe the psychology of the poet themselves as they're reading the poem, but removing that, removing vision as a sensory element also allows me to really hear and create my own images in my brain in a way that I can't do with my eyes open. So that's been a really interesting exercise. So maybe that's something you want to try while listening to our podcast as well. Either look at us on the screen, or if you want to close your eyes and listen as we're reading some of these poems and see what feels better to you. For DeForeest's poem, this like seductive, deadly force beauty that's coming in, I love how he described her. So every night I see her raven tress, her pallid body through her ragged dress.
I love as she lies on me like a leaden doll over my heaving chest. There's like, you're kept there. Which makes me want to move to talking about the experience here. Sounds very much like what happens in sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of liminality, there are more states of consciousness than this. I've been thinking about this a long time. You have wakefulness and you have sleep. But in between that, you have the hypnagogic state. The way I like to remember it is hypno-go to sleep. Hypnagogic, which is a space of time where you're not in the same consciousness as waking consciousness, but you're not quite asleep. Then you have all the different sleep cycles. And at the end, you have hypnopompic, which is you're waking up out of sleep, but you're again in the liminal space between that and waking consciousness again. Through your sleep, you have different cycles. One of them is the REM cycle, which means rapid eye movement, which is when most of your dreams occur. There is a liminal space, I would argue, between the cycles, and that when you're not dreaming and asleep, and then when you're dreaming and asleep. When you're dreaming and asleep, more liminal spaces can occur. Sometimes you can become aware of your dream, which is a prerequisite to full lucid dreaming. So you can become aware of your dream within your dream. And then within that awareness, you might actually be able to control your dream, to have a full lucid dream where you have full control over what is happening and how you are acting within your dream. There's constantly different liminal things bleeding their edges between each other. Now, in this poem, sometimes when you're in the hypnopompic state, so you're waking up out of sleep, there's something called sleep paralysis. This is something that I have encountered. So sleep paralysis is characterized by you're awake enough, you're still in a liminal place, but you can't move. It's terrifying. You can't feel anything. Like it feels as if, when I've had it, I feel as if I cannot breathe. And it's very tempting to panic. Though I've learned, if you ever have this, all you need to do is concentrate on your
Pinky?
That's it. All you need to do is concentrate on your pinky and just concentrate on moving that and be patient and it will happen. There's a lot of lore around sleep paralysis, one of them being the night hag.
Mm.
People experience during sleep paralysis apparitions, ghosts, figures, entities that sit on your chest. I've had it before where it feels like there's a force sitting on my chest, though most of the time I have sleep paralysis, it's usually just I can't move and it's very dark and very black. This poem has the succubus sense of the night hag of sleep paralysis. So although she comes out, when she lies on me like a leaden doll, that's when I like wake up and I feel the paralysis in me again. And that fills me with this satisfying terror right now as I talk about it. And it's interesting as it goes to the next stanza. Over my heaving chest, she bares her teeth. And no matter how much the speaker cries, she does it anyway. And I will say before I throw this back to you, Rachel, sometimes when I'm having sleep paralysis, I think I am shouting loudly for Rachel to wake me up. I'm like, oh no, I can't move. Wake me up, wake me up. And sometimes I go, and I feel the breath and I'm fully awake again. And I look and I'm like, how was she fast asleep when I was shouting really, really loud? Obviously, I wasn't shouting.
That makes me sad.
So
Well,
deliver me from my sleep paralysis, please, my love.
well, you used some interesting words in there that you felt like it awoke you during the sleep paralysis part. I forget exactly what you said, but I think this kind of comes back as well at the end of the poem with pray God, if only she would lift her head and let me rest before I too am dead. And let me rest. Because obviously, when you're experiencing sleep paralysis, and you can correct me if I'm wrong based on your experiences, I can imagine that a night with sleep paralysis would not be a very restful night.
Definitely not.
So, if only she would lift her head and let me rest before I too am dead. That call out to the divine as well before the end of the poem, when there's been this almost hellish woman figure that again has this erotic, seductive, but also vampiric quality to her.
So this is not what this means, but I'm just having a fun poetic to spin off that idea. I think about like if I'm to read you a poem that I take your life force
Oh.
and use it myself, I'm being vampiric towards you. So I wonder, this would be very unethical, but I wonder if it's like a spell, right? It's like this spell is to steal energy, soul stealing.
It reminds me of what we do in the shadows with the energy vampires.
So good. Colin Robinson.
Yeah, yeah.
Colin Robinson's a great character.
Yeah, that's an amazing show. If you haven't already seen it, definitely recommend watching it. But I guess speaking of dark female vampiric figures, it reminds me of, it's a bit of a jump, but it reminds me of witches, this female force. And then Nathan and I visited Salem, Massachusetts over the summer for the first time, which was really interesting to visit a place that has, obviously this really dark history of what went on with the Salem Witch Trials, but the city has really embraced this dark past. So everywhere you walk in town, there's witch stores and wand shops, and there's a witch statue. I think it's for Bewitched. So something I found really interesting about Salem, apart from when you walk around and you're seeing all of this, witch imagery, and they've really embraced this, is you can go there and there's a memorial to the people that were hung in the Salem witch trials. And you can see they've included different quotes from some of the, I'll call them victims of this witch trial. And I think one that really sticks out to me still, I believe his name was Giles Corey, who was pressed to death. I believe all of the other, and that there was something like 200 people that were accused in the Salem witch trials. And Giles was pressed to death. So we're talking about sleep paralysis and someone on your chest, this pressing. And his famous last words were more weight. Can you imagine? You're being pressed to death, which I believe is putting stones on your chest. And his words, he didn't accept that, admitting that he was guilty of witchcraft. He responds with more weight. I don't know how you feel with that. I know even at the time that was something that we talked about, how powerful and profound, but how dark those last words were. And I can't help but see the relation between the old hag and a weight on your chest and that.
Yeah, Salem, even you talking about that, and again, like goosebumps down the side of my face. Like Salem it was beautiful and distressed, and it reclaimed this witch identity from falsely accused witches generally, but also witches and witchcraft has been very much misunderstood and persecuted, and now there's tons of witches who are out there and thriving, and it's not this is one of the problems. And I guess we were speaking about Halloween initially and using, it was a pagan ritual, and pagan being used as this derogatory term, witch has been used as this derogatory term. And, it's a spiritual path that some people choose to go down. And it's not this like grand evil thing that it gets the reputation of being. So Salem celebrates witches in a place where they were persecuted. So it was it's an amazing place to be, and you can kind of feel its like palpable like life force. It's Duende. So I just want to say, Rachel, thank you so much for making this amazing Halloween episode. You are the most beautiful skeleton I've ever seen, as well as, fully fleshed human being.
Thank you.
And yeah, it was a joy. And I just want to say to all of our listeners, happy Halloween. or happy Samhain, or happy All Saints Day, or whatever else it is that you celebrate around this time.
If any of you are interested in having your poem be featured here on the podcast, click that link below to submit. If you're not ready to submit, that's okay. We've also included our mailing list below. This is the poetry newsletter you're going to want to wake up to. So go ahead and click that description as well, or visit thepoetryvessel.com/sign up.
All right, happy Halloween. High five, skeleton.
Love you.
Love you
Everyone,
too.
stay safe out there. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Trick or treat.
Trick or treat.